Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Monday, March 14th. Fortunately, CJ is having some internet issues, so I'm going to be flying solo today, but just going to be a quick update, going to walk you through some news-related events that broke over the weekend, specifically the EU's plans to vote on whether or not to ban proof-of-work consensus mechanisms. Obviously, that would have big implications for Bitcoin, and as a result, we saw a minor sell-off last night. We'll talk about that as well as take a look at some various assets, including ETH and a few more. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. I'm going to start with the headline that was driving price last night because it is relatively important and maybe we will get some more clarity this week. But essentially, the headline was as follows: Bitcoin banning measures seen too close to call in Monday's EU Parliament vote. So last night we had some news breaking, like I said, that the EU is considering banning proof of work as a consensus mechanism. This is the consensus mechanism that Bitcoin uses. And essentially their logic for doing so is that argument that we've been hearing for quite a while now, going back to really kind of the start of 2020 when it was brought up by Elon Musk. But that is the energy consumption that is inherent with proof of work blockchains. It is a very energy intensive means of consensus, but that being said, it is, the most stable, one of the most consistent, and, Bitcoin is very, very tried and true. That being said, this has sparked a debate between, Bitcoin maximalists and Bitcoin critics, including, the likes of Michael Saylor, talking about exactly how environmentally sustainable Bitcoin really is. What percentage of the current hash power is actually being contributed by green energy? We don't really know for sure. But I think providing some clarity to that before the EU takes a vote would be very, very important context to have. So let's take a look at how this news affected price, because like I said, we did get a bit of a sell-off here. So taking a look at the 1-hour chart to see this more clearly, as you can see here, this red candle, this is when the news broke. I saw some people in our community talking about, what is going on, what is leading to this negative price action. Shortly after those headlines started to break. But as you can see here, Bitcoin recovered very, very nicely. And what I think is most, noteworthy is that if we take a look at the daily chart as well, this level held up, this upward sloping trend line that CJ and I have been talking so much about over the last couple of weeks, continuing to put in these higher lows, indicating that, whales are willing to step in, long-term holders willing to step in, buy at these lower levels. This is indicative of increasing demand. As you can see, we're still coming up off these lows with buyers stepping in, even in the face of, some massive FUD like this news headline here. Bitcoin's still obeying the technicals and managing to put in this higher low. I think that is very, very important. So, Bitcoin bouncing back this morning. That's, like I said, on the back of that sell-off we saw last night. And let's just quickly take a look at ETH as well. I saw some comments in the chat. Take a look at ETH, and I think ETH is in a very similar boat here. But really what's interesting about ETH is the fact that we are kind of reaching the precipice of this triangle. We're reaching the tip here, this wedge really starting to tighten, and we're seeing kind of a volatility squeeze here as we, continue to kind of enter this point of the triangle. So we've been talking about this downward sloping trend line, and, ETH has kind of failed to break this, whereas Bitcoin, if we just take a quick look, has managed to kind of come back up to retest the 45K level. Besides this instance last week where we put in the higher low, we've been managing to show some relatively strong momentum, come up to retest this 45K level, and not put in, lower highs. ETH has been a little bit different in the sense that each subsequent time we see buyers step in, we kind of are propelled up a little bit less, and this downward sloping trend line is being maintained. But the similarity comes in with the upward sloping trend line, right? We still have this being obeyed, indicative of increasing demand at these higher levels. And really, we are getting to this point here where we could see a potential breakout. So one thing that I'm looking for, and this is something that, CJ talked often about, and something that he actually mentioned to me this morning that he wanted me to talk about was, just the possibility of a breakout above this trend line and what that could mean. If we do get a breakout above this line, something that it could possibly look like is, a breakout followed by rejection and then a retest of this level as support. If we get confirmation that this level is support and we bounce from this level, that could be indicative that, we are starting to climb higher. We're forming this rounding bottom, typically indicative of a market bottom, and we are ready to, climb higher here. So we are approaching, some critical points in price action for ETH. As you can see here, we're getting a little bit of a volatility squeeze as we kind of enter this final precipice here. So some interesting price action out of ETH as well. Last thing I want to say, and I think we'd be remiss not to mention this one yet again, Luna showing strength, independent of this market. And this one was really, really interesting last night and presented a unique buying opportunity. Like I said, there was that FUD that drove price down. And what happened with Luna was, it got driven down, but ultimately buyers stepped in right away. This thing was showing signs of strength before that FUD hit. It was at almost $95. Got sold into a little bit, pulled back to 91, but really, still looking very, very strong. So Luna, I think that looking at this daily chart here really tells the whole picture. We're getting this bullish engulfing candle following this sort of, hammer candle. Really, this was the result of that bearish news. Like I said, yesterday, this would have been a bullish engulfing candle. We were up here. That news broke that the EU is considering banning proof of work, which ultimately wouldn't really have that much of an effect on Luna because it's not a proof of work blockchain. But it did pull back here, form this kind of hammerish candle. But then, buyers stepped in, shook off the FUD, and Luna continued to climb into the mid 90s. So very, very impressive price action from Luna. And ultimately, continuing to show signs of resilience in a relatively shaky market. So some impressive stuff there from Luna. I think that, given the fact that we were able to shake off the FUD, that tells you that, the technicals are looking strong right now. It's not necessarily news-related events that are driving this market. And right now we are seeing kind of the buyers in control willing to step in at these lows and maintain these critical levels. So as long as we're able to maintain that upward sloping trend line, and kind of just bounce between here and that 45K level, it's looking like we're setting up for this kind of range in Bitcoin as well as for ETH. So just something to keep an eye on there, a few different assets, just to keep an eye on here as we start the week. But ultimately, I think we have a lot to watch, including, traditional indices as well. Oil, looking like it wants to maybe pull back a little bit here. So, just got to continue monitoring the develops with Russia and Ukraine. All of that has, very serious implications on this market. So we'll keep doing that. But that's all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. As always, if you want to join CJ and I in the crypto room, you can do so at the link below me, marketrebellion.com/try crypto. And please don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. Really helps out the channel. But that's all I got. See you guys in the members only dojo.